There are times when you deserve more than a coffee break, so make a cup of Mellow Birds. You'll find its smooth, mellow flavor turns an ordinary coffee break into a mellow moment. Mellow Birds for mellow moments.
Every day should have some.
Mellow Moments. You know, friends, I had recorded 20 episodes of this and I wasn't sure how people were taking to them. Certainly, it's not the view count that matters, but whether people genuinely are getting something out of these mellow moments. Well, why not? Let's do some more. I've got my cup of Mellow Birds here. There it is, the liquid butter. Like I said before, it's like a Werther's original that's been melted down and made into a watery liquid. The hug in a mug. Let's see what's on the box today, shall we?
Hello everybody, welcome to Woody's Den. From me and Fred the Ted. Fred's my old teddy bear. He's been in the family for years. Look, poor old thing, his fur's gone all funny. Stuffing's coming out of his head. He's lost one of his eyes. But today's Ted's big day because we're going to take him to a teddy bear factory where they make new bears, but there's a lady there called Mrs. Taylor and she's promised me a special favour. She's going to try and smarten him up for me. Isn't it funny that people, especially when they're young, like cuddly teddy bears? And believe you me, real bears aren't cuddly at all.
No, it's weird that this is one thing that AAA has never been into is the teddies. She's got tons of them. She must have about 100 of them or something. Doesn't give a shit. Can't really remember if I was into teddies. I can remember some specific toys that had names and things like that, but yeah, I wasn't much of a teddy guy either, I don't think. Maybe you were, though. You know, that's the nice thing about Mellow Moments is that you may be a teddy guy, I may not be, but it's all cool. I drink Mellow Birds, you drink tea, the gentleman next to you is drinking a weak lemon drink. There are no rules here. Everything's chilled out. Let's carry on watching.
Real bears are very fierce. You keep well away from real bears. So how do you think these fierce animals got turned into cuddly toys? Well, nobody's quite sure. But it was probably because of this lady called Margareta Steiff, who lived in Germany 100 years ago. She couldn't walk by herself because she got ill when she was a baby. Her friends and her sisters used to push her around in a little cart until she grew up and had a wheelchair of her own. She was very good at sewing and made clothes for people, but she kept on looking at the leftover pieces of material and wondering what she could use them for. One day she had a really good idea. She'd use the pieces to make toy animals as presents for her friends. Soon these toys got so popular that her brothers persuaded her to make more and more, and she opened a small factory.
Wow.
And here she is, sitting in her wheelchair in her toy factory. One day, her nephew, Richard, came into the workshop. Here's Richard, with his handsome moustache. He'd brought her a drawing of a bear he'd seen in a zoo. Margareta set to, cut out a pattern, sewed it up, and stuffed it with what we call sawdust. And she...
Well, I must say, this is very educational. I didn't know these things, did you, friends?
made her first bear. And the workers in her factory went on to make thousands of bears. Like this one. So that's probably where cuddly bears come from Margareta Steiff's workshop. But now, I'm off to the factory to see Mrs. Taylor and show her Fred the Ted. Bears, 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 bears everywhere. Everybody loves a bear. Bears, 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 bears everywhere. Everybody loves a bear. Well, here we are at the factory where they make teddy bears. And I'm off to see Mrs. Taylor. Oh, look.
Where's that factory then? Is that still there? Is that teddy bear factory still there? I hope it is. Probably isn't, but let's not ruin our mellow mood.
See the date on the gate? 1930. 1930 is more than 60 years ago, when the factory started making bears. And Mrs. Taylor worked at the factory for nearly 60 years herself. Well, here's Mrs. Taylor. Hello, Mrs. Taylor.
Just working out the dates, more than 60 years. That puts us in about 1991. It's always 1991 on this show.
Hello.
I've brought Fred the Ted to see you. He's a bit sad, Fred the Ted.
He is, isn't he?
Yes.
Oh, he
Do you
is.
think you might be able to help him?
Creature. I'm hoping so, yes. I think we can do a repair job on him, yes.
He's quite old, isn't he? How
Yes.
can you tell that he's old?
Well, by the pads and the eye. The eye should be a locked-in eye.
He's only got
He's
one
only
eye.
got one, yes. We'll have to find him a pair and have them
matching
locked
one.
in, yes. And
So Mrs. Taylor soon saw that Fred was an old bear, especially because his eyes were dangerous. They weren't fixed in carefully like they are today.
yes, it'll be a
So do you think you'll be able to have a go at that for me?
yes, we'll do our best, see
Thank
what
you
we
very
can
much.
make of it anyway.
Well, while Mrs. Taylor gets to work on Fred, let's go and see how teddy bears are made today. I wonder how bears like this brand new one are made. Well, it starts off with a length of furry cloth on Barbara's machine. And a sharp cutter. Guess what's happening? What do you think Barbara's been making here? It's a leg. Oh, I don't. We're going off to see the sewing machine now. The sewing machines. Much quicker than sewing by hand.
Just imagining the conversations between these two. Never guess what was on the telly last night, Babs. I don't know, Doreen. What was on the telly last night? Oh, that Cilla Black was back. Oh, you should see him on there. What was it? Stars in their eyes. Oh, I love it. Come on.
See how fast the needle goes. And what's being sewn up? It's the leg. It's all sewn up, but it's inside out. It doesn't take long to get it the right way round. You watch.
Those women have got proper prisoner cellbook H Rita hair. I know Lady Charlotte watches this sometimes. She'll get that reference. Get those rude thoughts out of your head. Naughty boy, bad boy, in your bed.
How's Fred getting on all this time? Oh, the needle and thread for dear old Fred. What piece is this? It's still inside out. Can you guess what's happening? Let's turn it the right way round, and you'll see. It's a Ted's head, with his eyes very safely fitted in, not like poor old Fred's. We've got all the pieces. I wonder what happens next. Oh, Ted's getting his stuffing blown into him. This is the stuff for stuffing, Ted. It's not sawdust, like the old days. No. It's called polyester. And soon, the new Teds are nearly finished. What's going on here? Looks painful.
A lot of handmade elements. A lot of handmade elements.
Now, let's see if Fred's ready yet. I think he is. Oh, Mrs. Taylor, look at this. Look at Fred the Ted. Hey, he's a new bear. Thank you very, very much.
My pleasure.
I think we'll take him back to Woody's den. Come on.
Good.
Bye, Mrs. Taylor.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Nice work, Mrs. Taylor.
Bears, 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 bears everywhere. Everybody loves the bear. Here I am, back in Woody's den. With Fred the Ted, looking good as new. Even though he's still really an old bear. Now, there you are, Fred. You are not only an old bear, you're a famous bear. You're on the telly. You're a star bear. Well, some bears have been star bears for a long time, haven't they? Really famous. They've had books written about them.
Shall we think of some, boys and girls? We've got Paddington Bear. We've got Winnie the Pooh. We've got Rupert the Bear. Do you remember him? Mainly those three. All right, let's carry on.
Been on television. Here's a bear song I've made up. It's a puzzle song. I'm going to sing about famous bears, and you've got to guess which bear I'm singing about. Now, you can shout out the name if you like.
Okay.
Bears, 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 bears everywhere. Everybody loves a bear. Now, first puzzle bear. Ready? He arrived at a railway station.
It's Paddington. It's Paddington. I know it. I know already. It's Paddington. Get out, Lyndon. I had you there, didn't I?
The Brown family found him there. He wears a hat and Wellington boots, and his name is... Yes, his name is Paddington Bear. Whoa. Now, Paddington's been famous for a long time, but he's not as old as me, and he's not as old as Fred the Ted. Now, I know how old he is because my mum told me when he was made, in 1932. That's his date, 1932. And Paddington's got a date as well. His date is 1958.
Oh. Paddington's not as old as you'd imagine, is he, friends? I thought he was much older than that.
1958. 1958 was when Michael Bond wrote the very first story of Paddington Bear. Ready for the next puzzle, Bear?
Yeah, I'm ready. You ready, Lyndon? I'm going to beat you again.
See him fly through the air with Spotty.
Oh, it's Super Ted. Oh, well, I suppose Super Ted has fallen off a bit since these days. It's Superhead. Not behind the bus, Spotty. Good Welsh hero, of course, Super Ted.
A Ted with his cloak outspread. Nobody's heard his magic word, and his name is... Yeah, his name is Super Ted. Whoa! Super Ted. Whoa! Now, Super Ted is quite young. Well, of course, you might think he's quite old. Because he's younger than me and older than you. He was born on the telly. 1978.
Older than me, kids.
1978. That's his date. We'll put him here. Sit up, Super Ted.
Is Super Ted older than you, boys and girls? Let me know in the chat.
And last, but not least, when he walks through a forest called Nutwood, adventure is in the air. He always wears his yellow scarf.
It's
and
Rupert.
His name
It's Rupert. Get out, Lyndon. Beat you again. It's Rupert. I know.
is...
Rupert. Rupert.
Yes, his name is Rupert Bear. Oh. Now, Rupert is the oldest of all our puzzle bears. You'd have first seen Rupert in a newspaper called the Daily Express more than 70 years ago. In 1920.
Wow.
1920. He's much older than me, or Paddington, or Super Ted, or Fred the Ted. So now, we've got a line of Teds, from the oldest to the youngest.
If you're wondering, by the way, Winnie the Pooh was 1926, I believe. 1921. Yeah, 1921 was the creation of Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. He is not included for some reason here, possibly because it was a Disney rights issue, I'd imagine. So they included Super Ted instead.
Now then, how did the teddy bear get his name? Well, I'm not going to tell you. This is a puzzle. I'm going to leave it to you to work out. But I will give you a clue.
I've been enjoying this episode so much. It took me 17 minutes and 40 seconds to finish my coffee. If any statos are among you interested.
Here's a very famous drawing from an old newspaper. It's a cartoon. Here's a bear. Oh, look, a very small one. And here's a man with a gun. And he seems to be saying, "No, I will not shoot the bear." Well, now here are two more clues. The man was the most important man in America.
It looks like Teddy Roosevelt. It's Teddy Roosevelt, isn't it? Take that, Lyndon. Even Norris McWhirter knows that.
And his name was Theodore. I wonder what's short for Theodore. Bye. See you next week.
Bye.
Bears, bears, bears. Bears everywhere.
Oh, well, that was nice, wasn't it? Join me again tomorrow, boys and girls, for another edition of Mellow Moments.
There are times when you deserve more than a coffee break, so make a cup of Mellow Birds. You'll find its smooth, mellow flavor turns an ordinary coffee break into a mellow moment. Mellow Birds for mellow moments.
Every day should have some.